how to not lose yourself in relationship. Hey everybody, in this video, I am going to be talking about how to not lose yourself in a relationship. Hence the title, right? But what does that really mean? Well, some people have a tendency when they get into a relationship to sort of lose themselves in it. They kind of forget who they were before. They let go of friends and hobbies and things that, were important to them before getting into the relationship. They sort of lose their self-identity. And any healthy relationship has a balance between putting energy and time and care into nurturing the relationship, as well as maintaining your sense of self so that you're not lost in that relationship. And it really is a balance. But to be healthy mentally for yourself and to also have a healthy relationship, you need to master that balance between the two. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Why is this important? And then how do we actually do it? Before we get started, however, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Doing so greatly helps this channel. My content here on YouTube is massively suppressed. And when you like a video, when you share it, when you subscribe to the channel, it tells the algorithm that people are interested in this, and it helps the content be seen by more people. So if you find this information valuable, then please do that because it really does help override the censorship. Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Anthony, a certified sexologist, and for over a decade I have been helping men, women, and couples identify the patterns and behaviors that are sabotaging their relationships and sex life. I have the unique ability to hear what you say and know what you need. When you need help to have the relationship and sex life you know is possible but haven't been able to figure out, I will help you have the relationship of your dreams and the best sex of your life. Okay, let's start by going a little bit deeper into why it's important to not lose yourself in a relationship. Number one, if you do lose yourself, it can lead to unhappiness and a disconnection from your own desires and values. So it's really important that you stay connected to the core of who you are, your own desires, your core values. And if you lose yourself in a relationship, sometimes you can also lose those things. Number two, it can lead to codependency. People have different ideas of what codependency actually means. I will read you the actual definition. A psychological condition or a relationship in which a person manifesting low self-esteem and a strong desire for approval has an unhealthy attachment to another, often controlling or manipulative person, such as a person with an addiction to alcohol or drugs. It doesn't have to necessarily be somebody that has an addiction. What's important here is that you have this strong desire for approval and an unhealthy attachment to the person, right? And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about codependency. And so if you allow yourself to really get lost in the relationship such that you've lost your individuality, right? You can end up being dependent on that person and that relationship for your sense of self. And that is not a good thing to do. Next, you can lose your sense of individual purpose. I think every relationship should have a shared purpose. What is the reason that we are together, right? But that doesn't mean you can't have an individual purpose as well. Now, Celine and I were lucky enough to share both of those because our individual purposes and our purpose together were largely the same. It doesn't have to be that way, right? So, now that Celine is gone, my purpose around this work that I do is part of my individual purpose, but I don't expect my partner to share that same purpose. As long as we have an other purpose together, that is what is important in the context of the relationship. But what would be bad would be if I were to let go of my purpose with my work here simply because I was in a new relationship that was different and that didn't necessarily share that. So you do want to be careful about losing your sense of individual purpose. When you lose yourself in relationship, you also tend to reference your identity externally, right? So rather than being really rooted in knowing who you are, you tend to reference who you are as the couple or as something that's external to you, and that is not a healthy thing to do either. It's okay. So what you really want is you really want to be yourself, like this is who I am and this is who we are together. Both of those can coexist. You just don't want to lose one or the other. Another potential problem is it can halt your personal growth. You may have been on a personal growth path, right? And then you get in this relationship and maybe they don't share the same personal growth path and you just kind of let yours go. That's fine. He doesn't like that or she doesn't like that, so I'm not going to bother with it. That is not good because we all have our own individual paths in these lives. We have our own issues that we need to work on, and we have our own ways that we like to work on those things. That doesn't mean that we can't learn new things or potentially bring in some new stuff that our partner exposes us to. Of course we can. But if we know that this is what we need to work on or this is the way we like to work on things, we don't want to just let that go. And last on this list is that it can lead to a decrease in overall happiness and well-being. And while sometimes people might think that, really throwing themselves into the relationship and sort of losing their personal identity and going all in the relationship is going to make them happier, research shows that in the long run, that's not the case. Now, I do want to be very clear. You should give 100% to your relationship. You should be all in on that relationship. That is important. However, we want to make the distinction that you're not doing that at the expense of who you are as an individual. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video? It is a balance between maintaining your sense of self and committing fully to the relationship. So now that we understand some of the potential problems with losing yourself in relationship, let's talk about how we can avoid that. What can we do to not get lost, to maintain that healthy balance that I have been talking about? Well, number one, it takes effort. It takes effort. You can't just go on autopilot once you get into a relationship and it's all just going to work out. You have to work at it. It really does take effort. You're going to have to work at keeping both of those things alive and healthy. And, if you're not willing to do that, then you really need to question whether or not you are ready to be in a relationship or not. So many times when it comes to anything, relationship or sex life related, I will often tell people it's going to take some work. Like, you're going to have to put some effort in. And a lot of times, I'll hear people say, man, that sounds like a lot of work. Or really, like, why can't it just be easy? Or why can't this, that, or the other thing? I mean, hey, that's life, right? Anything that is worthwhile requires effort. And that's just the way it is. And so, if you're not willing to put in the effort to maintain this healthy balance, then I would ask you to seriously sit down and ask yourself the question, am I ready to be in a relationship? Next, you have to have the awareness to realize when you are potentially getting out of balance, because these things tend to happen over time. It's not generally the case where you get together with somebody and then instantly you're lost in the relationship. It can happen, but generally these things happen over time. So you need to maintain the awareness. When you notice that you're starting to get a bit out of balance, then you need to say, oh, okay, hold on, pause. Where am I forgetting about myself? Where am I putting myself on the back burner? Where am I losing myself here? And can I get back into that healthy balance again? One of the tools that you can use to get back into healthy balance is to set appropriate boundaries. So that might mean making sure that you say, hey, I need X amount of time for my self-care, or I need X amount of time for girl time, for guy time, right? For, a hobby or something that you really love doing. The key to setting appropriate boundaries is you have to make sure that they're relevant, right? So they don't just seem arbitrary. Like, how does that really even factor into this? You want to make sure that you set them with compassion. So rather than just saying, this is just a boundary and that's the way it is and you just need to deal with it, you need to say, I need to set this boundary because when I have the time for self-care, I can then show up to the relationship in a better place. I can devote more energy. I'm not feeling depleted or exhausted or whatever it is, right? You want to make sure that you set them with compassion and let your partner know why you are setting the boundary. So as I've mentioned already, a little bit at least, you want to prioritize your own needs when it is important, right? So you can it's similar to, setting boundaries, but setting boundaries isn't necessarily just about prioritizing your own needs. It could be other things as well. So I wanted to separate this out and make sure that you understood that prioritizing your own needs is important. But you also need to make sure that you are not neglecting your partner's needs or the needs of the relationship. You can go out of balance too far in the other direction by, prioritizing yourself, your own needs, your own hobbies too much and not giving enough to the relationship. You also want to make sure that you are pursuing your own individual interests. You most likely had individual interests before you got into this relationship. And it is one of the things that was attractive about you to your partner, right? They're like, wow, who is this interesting person who's doing these interesting things? But then you get into a relationship and you stop doing the interesting things, right? So that can sometimes affect the attraction. You will hear couples say, well, when we got together, you were this person. And now that we're together, X number of whatever, you're not that person anymore. Now, nobody expects you to be exactly the same throughout the entire relationship. We understand people grow, people change, life happens, right? But when you suddenly just stop all the things, that made you who you were when this person met you, that can sometimes be a problem because they might potentially lose some attraction because you're like, well, you're not the same person that I was attracted to initially. So, pursue your individual interests, again, with balance, making sure that you're not neglecting the relationship. And part of that is having girl or guy time. I talk about this a lot on the channel also, but for women, having girl time helps them rebuild their oxytocin levels. It is really important for them. If you have some quality girl time, you will come back to the relationship in a much better place. Don't expect your man to meet that need for you, right? Because for the most part, he can't really. Yes, he can cuddle with you and that can help you build oxytocin levels also. But, what you get from spending time with girls and going to the spa or, whatever it is, gossiping about, whatever, watching some show about wedding dresses or whatever it is, like that can't really be replaced by your partner. So it's important that you get some of that from your girlfriends. And guys, the way that you rebuild your testosterone levels is by spending time with other guys. Right? Doing guy type stuff, right? Now, maybe one of your guy things is to go rock climbing, and maybe your woman's into rock climbing and she can go with you. Okay. But don't always expect your woman to want to do all of the testosterone building activities that you enjoy doing. It's great if she does some of them, but you don't need her to fill that space for you. That's why you have guy friends. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you are clearly communicating the following. Number one, why it is important to you. Many times when we communicate things or we ask for boundaries or we say we want to have girl or guy time or we say we want to continue pursuing, our interests or hobbies, we don't express to our partners why those things are important. And so to our partner, it often comes across as, well, they just not committed enough to the relationship, or they don't prioritize me, or, they don't care that much. But that's often not the case. It's often just that the thing that they want to do is important to them for a reason, and you just don't know what that reason is because they didn't communicate it to you. So it's important that you communicate why this is important to you. And then also that it's not going to take away from your commitment to the relationship. That's the second thing that you want to make sure that you let your partner know. Like, hey, it's important to me to continue, racing bicycles because that is how I maintain my fitness. That is something that I'm passionate about, that brings me joy. And when I get to do that, I come back to the relationship all charged up and, wanting to spend more time with you. And I understand that that can be a big commitment, and I commit to you that I will never allow that to overtake the relationship where I'm taking away from what we're building together. So those are two important things that you want to make sure that you communicate. So there you go. I hope you found that helpful. That is, some ways that you can help balance being an individual with being fully committed to your relationship so that you're not getting lost in it. And as always, if you want to find out more about my work, please go to kevinanthonycoaching.com/link in bio. That is my link tree, where you can find links to all the things I'm up to, from my coaching programs to media appearances I've been on, to products that I sell, blog articles, podcast, YouTube. All of it is right there. It is the easy way to find what you are looking for.